police was started out of slavery.
The call for reparatory justice has been continuous, persistent, and painful. Since slavery ended some 400 years ago, the descendants of the black enslaved who were ripped of their souls to work in the Caribbean have been demanding reparatory justice. But what is reparatory justice or reparations? Reparations is defined as the making of amends for a wrong done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. Program advisor in the Office of Reparations and Economic Enfranchisement in the Ministry of Culture, Rodney Grant, provides this definition of reparation and explains why it is so important now more than ever.
Reparatory justice and reparations can mean so many different things, but actually it is repaying for several wrongs that would have been done at several different levels. At the level of justice, at the level of, and I guess justice to cover a lot of the other things, like economy, social level, at the spiritual level, and these are all things that were raised or were attempted to be raised from our African ancestors that we're looking to repair. Inclusive of that is the psychological damage that was done to our people as well.
But why does reparations equate to justice for those descendants of the once enslaved? Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, in his book Britain's Black Debt, Reparations for Caribbean Slavery and Native Genocide, spoke extensively to the inequalities caused by slavery. Sir Hilary posits that the European mass enslavement of Africans should have been a crime. However, many European diplomats and politicians argued over the years that it was in the national interest of the building of the European economy. Barbarity time was a term used for enslaved Africans in the British Caribbean to describe the period of their enslavement. Chattel slavery and the slave trade that fed it were crimes against humanity. The pain of enslavement and the period of its injustice haunt citizens and weaken their capacity to experience citizenship as equals with the descendants of slave owners. Reparations as justice connects each descendant of enslaved Africans and decimated natives to deep, painful emotions. According to the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History, over the period of the Atlantic slave trade, from approximately 1526 to 1867, some 12.5 million slaves were shipped from Africa and 10.7 million arrived in the Americas. The Atlantic slave trade was likely the most costly in human life. That is why the call for reparations is real and constant. The slavery injustices perpetrated against the black race have destroyed entire families and African civilizations. In July 2013, the heads of government of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, made a historic decision to launch a reparations claim against the governments of 8 European states. The government of each member state of CARICOM had established a National Reparations Committee or task force, tasked with the mission of carrying forward the reparations effort at the national level. According to Barbados' ambassador to CARICOM, David Comachon, by early 2014, the CARICOM Reparations Commission had designed a CARICOM Reparatory Justice Program centered on a CARICOM Reparations 10-point plan. The first 5 points of the CARICOM Reparations 10-point plan includes a formal apology from the governments of the relevant European nations, a voluntary repatriation program for those diasporans who are interested in physically returning to the continent of Africa, an indigenous people development program, a program to establish relevant and needed cultural institutions in the Caribbean, and a program to deal with the Caribbean's public health crisis. Meanwhile, in January and February 2016, the chairman of the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee, acting on behalf of the entire leadership of the CARICOM, wrote to Britain, Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, France, and Denmark, informing them of the claim for reparations and of the demands contained in the 10-point plan. In March 2018, the European Union Parliament passed a resolution acknowledging the legitimacy of the call for reparations and encouraging European Union nations to make reparations. August 2019, the University of Glasgow in Scotland admitted its complicity in African enslavement and entered into an agreement with the University of the West Indies to provide UWI with £20 million in funding for educational and research programs. February 2021, CARICOM heads of government met in conference and revamped and refocused the CARICOM reparations campaign. The CARICOM reparations 10-point plan states explicitly that reparations should start with a full formal apology. When Prince Charles visited Barbados on November 30th, 2021, during the Republic celebrations, he acknowledged that slavery was an atrocity, but never apologized for evils of slavery.
From the darkest days of our past and the appalling atrocity of slavery, which forever stains our history, the people of this island forged their path with extraordinary fortitude. Emancipation, self-government, and independence were your waypoints.
Pan-Africanist and educator Ian Marshall believes that a full apology will not be granted anytime soon.
Well, a full formal apology has ramifications in law. In other words, it triggers a process where the person has admitted to a wrong, and therefore the victims who are recognized under laws and descendants of the persons who are wrong can seek indemnification for that, right? And seek justice through the law. So that apology will not be forthcoming because for that those very reasons.
The official position by the royal family to date is that slavery presented the darkest days of our past. Prince Charles added that moving forward, the creation of this republic offers a new beginning. According to news sources, the Royal African Company was prolific within the slave trade. Between 1672 and 1731, the Royal African Company transported more than 187,000 slaves from Africa to English colonies in North, Central, and South America. Many of the enslaved Africans transported by the Royal African Company were branded DY, standing for Duke of York. Fighting this war on the front line for the past 20 years is Interim Secretary General of the National Registry Rastafari Secretariat and Trust, Paul Rasimba Rock, who believes that the call for reparations should be made by the Barbados government first.
A full apology for me means definitely that you're saying yes. I have done this. I'm taking ownership. And if I take ownership to say that I have done this, then the onus is then on me, to repair what I have done. I think because of the monetary aspect, the monetary aspect of the reparations is the stick up, one of the stick ups. I think it's the main stick up.
While Program Advisor in the Office of Reparations and Economic Enfranchisement in the Ministry of Culture, Rodney Grant, believes that the government is doing more than enough for reparations to be granted soon enough. But he said the hardest job is getting the Barbadian people on board, seeing the importance of reparations. He said the fight will not be an easy one.
A lot of work is happening that people may not see, so I think we're doing the right things. The hardest job may be to get our own people to come on board, to build consensus at the national level, to get people to get an understanding of what is intrinsic to this fight, what it is that is required for us. Because if we don't have that energy and that spiritual movement at the national level, then it's going to make it even far more difficult. If our people are saying, things like reparations don't matter, and we can forget about that, that was a thing in the past, If our people are going to take that approach, that means it's going to make it far more harder because we do not have the energy to really push forward. But I think we're doing the right things, and we just got to continue the fight. It's not going to be an easy one.
While many Barbadians cry that slavery happened too long ago for reparations to be granted, university lecturer and orator Dr. Derek Murray says that granting reparations is not a far cry. While Africans were torn from their homelands, they were not only stripped of their dignity, but what gave them purpose, their religion, African spirituality, and the practice of voodoo. Many academics, such as Dr. Murray, argue that the return to African spirituality can help in the reparatory justice fight.
We lost a lot of the technology associated with our spirituality, and we lost that because what our knowledge was made illegal. We lost it because it was made illegal without due process. In the Caribbean and in North America, very often when there were plots to rebel or rebellions, there was a political leader, but there was also at his side almost always a spiritual leader to advise, to carry out rituals and so on. And so it wasn't long before the white planters, the enslavers, worked out that our spirituality was key and important to resistance.
Also calling for reparations is the Muslim community, and founder of the Barbados Association of Muslim Ladies, Farhana Bubilia, said that the call for reparatory justice and the evils of slavery in particular is a thorn which pricks the hearts of the Muslim community. She says now more than ever reparations must be granted.
Reparations is important to me as someone of East Indian descent, but also as a Muslim. First and foremost, my faith teaches me that we must always stand with the oppressed. And in cases where we are the oppressed, we must stand for justice and truth in all that we do.
Even in this brutal fight for reparations, social activists, academics, and Pan-Africanists who are descendants of the enslaved have a hope that this evil will be repaid someday. The light they see is hope for the young black youth being granted reparations. Pan-Africanist and founding member of the Global African Congress, Sister Andrea King, is committed to the cause.
We are still here. Black lives matter, and they matter more now, particularly when you look at the ethnic demographics over the next 50 years. Black people will always be here, and we will always fight for reparations.
While poet and author touching on social justice issues in some of her work, Irija the Dawn Alkins has a hope that her work as a spoken word artist can drive the call home for reparations.
Well, I think I could do what I always do. Talk about issues that I think need to be highlighted in hopes that more can be done.
Despite the years that it may take for the call of reparations to be answered, there is still a hope, a faith, and a belief that there is light at the end of the tunnel for reparations to be granted. The faith remains in the young, bright sparks who are willing to carry on the fight. We want justice.